We always look to keep up with USC football, but especially here in 2017 with the Trojans Pac-12 favorites and possible college football playoff participants here in 2017. But there's, of course, work to do, starting with Saturday's game against Western Michigan. We bring in Chris Swanson from Trojan Sports to help us look at the personnel entering week one. Chris, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. So thanks again. We enjoyed the breakdown last time and certainly gained a lot of insight into USC football and so many expectations for this fall. So again, Western Michigan minus PJ Fleck, although a 13-1 team. So this is no pushover, no game that you can just look past and move on to Stanford. They'll be capable despite, again, losing P.J. Fleck and Corey Davis, who moved on to the NFL's first-round draft. The depth chart is out looking at USC personnel. So let's look at the offense first here, Chris. And I'm going to take a stab in the dark that Sam Darnold eked out a starting job at quarterback.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's the pick of quarterback. I guess that's where we'll start, is at quarterback, the money position. But he's obviously the pick. He's the returning superstar. Under him is Matt Fink, redshirt freshman. And then Jack Sears is third. And the true freshman, they're trying to possibly redshirt him, it looks like. So no surprises at quarterback at all. Sam Darnold's going to be the guy. And if he's healthy, that's what their season pretty much relies on. Tailback, not a lot of surprises either. Ronald Jones II is somebody we talked about a lot last time we spoke, and he's a potential superstar. Underneath that, though, there's three guys battling for that second spot, all listed at oars, with freshman Stephen Carr, redshirt freshman Vivai Malapai, and Cedric Ware, who's a junior, who USC fans should know because he's played a bunch. Stephen Carr seems like somebody who's really special, who's kind of like that Ronald Jones NFL type in the future. He's a freshman. I expect him to eventually be the second running back for USC. I don't know how long it's going to take. The other two guys are pretty close to even in my mind. Receivers, where it starts to get a little interesting. And it wasn't – there's no surprises if you followed, all of fall camp and spring. Deontay Burnett's the starting slot receiver. We talked about him a lot and his potential last time we spoke. Outside of that, the other two receivers are Steven Mitchell and Jalen Green as the starters. Probably not the names that people expected. Steven Mitchell is a guy that's been there forever. He's a redshirt senior. He was a big-name recruit coming out of high school, but he hasn't done a ton at USC. He's had a bunch of injuries, so I think a lot of people expected, especially at the outside position, since he's 5'10", and USC, has these taller receivers and you're used to seeing them play. I think people didn't expect to see him get that starting spot. So that was a little bit of a surprise if you're just a casual USC fan. Jalen Green also used to be a quarterback on the roster, the other starter at the outside spot. So that's a little bit of a surprise. I think we're looking to see can a Tyler Vaughns or some of these other younger receivers that USC brought in, last few years, they were big name guys. Can they overtake these guys? We'll see. Right now, USC is going towards experience, and we'll see if the receiving core can be good also, because, there's some concerns there, I think, when you have a redshirt senior, as a starting receiver. That's usually a spot for freshmen. You come in a receiver and play right away. Tight end, no surprises. Daniel Imartabebe is their star. He could be hurt there, though, so maybe Tyler Petit plays a bit more. He's listed as an or with him right now because of that injury. Underneath him, Kerry Angeline or Eric Kromenhoek, the freshman. They're battling Josh Fall as a freshman. He's down there, too, also at an or. Not a lot of surprises there. Offensive line, a lot of experience, a lot of returners, maybe not a lot of game experience, but a lot of older guys. Toe Lobendon starting at left tackle. He's played there. A lot of people have seen him play. He's a redshirt junior. He's been there forever. Chris Brown at left guard. He actually won that spot coming into the season last year over Damian Mama. So he didn't hold on to it, but he's a guy that has some experience. Nico Fall at center, redshirt senior, done very well at center. Right guard, senior Vianney Talmaivao. Right tackle is junior Chuma Edoga. So if you look at their frontline offensive line, tons of experience, tons of older guys. And underneath those guys, a bunch of young stars, really, it looks like, battling to play, especially at tackle. You see a lot of young freshmen. I think that if their offensive line stays healthy, they look like they're in good shape, at least depth-wise, and we'll see if, Toe Lobendon can play left tackle effectively. It looks like they could have a really good offensive line potentially in the Pac-12. So I think if you look at this depth chart on offense, you see why USC, could potentially make a national title run. Sam Darnold, Ronald Jones, a good offensive line.
Chris, I'm glad you took care of the pronunciations along the offensive line for me. So you did yeoman's work there. Very nice. I'm going to ask you to do this. So at the conclusion of a season, we typically grade the positions, or at the end of games, a lot of guys like yourself like to grade the positions out. So I'm going to ask you to give an expectance or projection grade of each group. The quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers / tight ends, and the offensive line, how good you expect them to be.
Okay. Quarterback A+, as good as possible. I think with Sam Darnold, I think even if he takes a step back, there's no issues there. They don't have a guy underneath him maybe that could come in if he's hurt, but he's awesome. So I give that an A+. Running backs, B+ to A-. I think that they're right there at elite. I'm not sure if they're completely like the best of the best in the country, but they should be right there. The tight end, if Daniel Imortabebe is healthy, A+, because I think that he's a future NFL type tight end. So I like the tight ends a lot. Receivers, I'm going to go B- to C+, maybe B- if we're talking about another Pac-12 team, maybe higher if we're talking about another Pac-12 team. For USC, pretty average, I think, right now. I want to see them prove it. I think that that's the area of concern on the offense if you look at the depth chart. And then the offensive line, I would say the interior, I'd say is an A. The tackle position could be a little bit of a concern. So I'll average that out. I'll say B or B+, but I think that there could be some issues there just because they're not that deep and experienced to tackle, and that's a position that could be a problem. But their interior is really impressive.
Yeah, so it's a defense that ranked in the top 30 in the nation in yards against nationally. So we come back to 2017, and Adoree Jackson's gone. Some other playmakers on the defensive front gone. Cam Smith, the leader, although you like the entirety of the linebacking core in particular. So run us through the depth chart and let us know what we're looking at on that side of the football.
Yeah, they run a defense that's a 3-4-5-2 hybrid. They play a lot of nickel, so they're going to list more than 11 positions here, just so you know. But I think that no matter what defense they're running, they have stars, and it's going to stand out. Defensive end, we'll start there. Rasheem Green is the former 5-star recruit and a guy that a lot of people are expecting to kind of take a jump this year. He's starting at defensive end. Underneath him, Christian Rector is a guy that was also a pretty high-end recruit, and while he hasn't played that much, has played enough and has looked pretty good. Jay Tufele, the freshman, is underneath them. High-end potential guy. Nose tackle, it looks like it's going to be Josh Fatu, the junior college player. I'm not sure if that's going to stick because Marlon Tuipulotu, the freshman, has looked that good. We'll see what happens there. Right now, Tuipulotu is actually listed in a battle for the second string spot with Brandon Peely, another freshman, and Kenny Bigelow, a guy that a lot of people will recognize because he's a fifth-year senior, has been there forever. I think it's more of a Fatu-Tuipulotu battle, in my opinion. The other defensive end spot is listed as Malik Doran, Liam Jimmons, and Jacob Lichtenstein, who's a freshman. Liam Jimmons is a redshirt freshman. Malik Doran's been there forever. He's a redshirt junior. I'm not sure how much that position is going to play because it seems like they like to use 2 down linemen a lot. And if they do use 3, I'm not sure they're going to follow those rules to a T. And I'm not sure those are going to exactly be the guys. So that position group's more of 2 positions set, I think. And then that third is kind of a mix, and we'll see what happens there because they run a lot of nickel, again, as I said. They do use 4 linebackers almost all the time, though. And again, this is the star of the, potential star of the defense, in my opinion, this position group. Uchenna Nwosu at strong side, Porter Gustin at Predator, Cam Smith in the middle, John Houston at weak side. That's a pretty impressive group. At strong side, under Uchenna, Wale Batiku, and Juliana Falnico, the freshman. Underneath Port Augustine at Predator, sophomore Connor Murphy, who can also play the strong side position as well. So they're kind of deep there because both him and Wale Batiku can switch back and forth. Hunter Eccles, the freshman, is listed at third at Predator. And then the middle, at both middle and weak side, which are also interchangeable positions, this is where you see the depth of the linebackers really come into place because they can switch guys along or around. But under Cam Smith, Jordan Iosefa, who's a guy that a lot of people expected to actually get a starting position. He's really good. I expect him to have a bright future. You see Elijah Juan Tucker, a senior, listed third at the middle linebacker spot. Shows you how deep they are. Grant Moore is underneath them. And then weak side, Levi Jones, a freshman, is underneath John Houston. He could play this year. He's really impressive. That linebacking core is really impressive. I think it's going to be for years to come. Defensive backfield, just as talented, maybe a little bit less deep at a couple of positions at the cornerback position, really. But Biggie Marshall's a future star. He's one of the stars at corner. Jack Jones is the other star at corner. He's a potential future star. He's a bit younger. He's going to be a true sophomore. So he hasn't proven as much yet, but I expect a lot from both of those guys. And then at the two safety spots, Chris Hawkins has been there forever. Marvell Tell has been starting forever. He's a true junior. He's a nickel spot, which could feature Ajane Harris a lot, who's another redshirt junior. They have a really experienced frontline defensive backfield. Cornerback, back to corner, the depth there gets a little shaky underneath the two stars in Jack Jones and Biggie Marshall. Under Biggie Marshall, you see Jamel Cook listed. He's a redshirt freshman, came in as a safety. He's 6'4". Not sure how that's going to work out. I think that he's been moved there because they need him there. Jaquari Godfrey's listed. He's hurt. We'll see how that – he's coming back from an injury, I should say. We'll see how that works. Greg Johnson, true freshman, could be really talented. He's a true freshman. That could be a problem at corner. Isaiah Langley is under Jack Jones at the other corner spot. And Dom Davis, who recently moved from running back. We'll see how that goes. But the frontline guys, again, uber talented. At safety, back to safety, you see a lot of experience there. Keely Ross at nickel, and then CJ Pollard, who's a redshirt freshman, strong safety. Matt Lopes, a free safety, who's a former walk-on, has been there forever and is underrated. And then the freshman Bubba Bolden, also at that strong safety spot. They have a really deep group of safeties. I think it's really impressive, and a group that could really help this defense along and be talented and special.
We are 3 days away from USC football at the Coliseum as the Trojans host Western Michigan. Of course, the darlings of college football in 2016 under P.J. Fleck, who's moved on to Minnesota. Biggie Marshall. Okay, I remember when the recruiting wars were going on and being waged for Amon Marshall, and I know that transition at some point had been made to the name, and I think the recruiting wars came down to Michigan and USC, if I remember correctly. Marshall chooses USC, of course. Do we know what Biggie, where that nickname came from, what it means? Do we have any idea, Chris?
It was actually he was just given to him when he was much younger. I actually call him that because I've known him forever. I started covering him when he was a freshman in high school still, because he started getting these scholarship offers so early. I think USC offered him when he was a rising sophomore, so after his freshman year. So at the time, he was still a 6'1" cornerback. So he was so big. I think everybody just called him Biggie because he was big. And then, of course, the rapper. He's just that kind of became a popular nickname because of the Notorious B.I.G., I think. So that's kind of where it came from. He probably wants to be known as Amon, as he gets older. He's a famous college player. I can't help it. I've just been calling him that, for years now. So that's what I hear most of the time out of the media and online is Biggie Marshall now. Yeah.
And for the early part of his collegiate career, I just knew him as Amon Marshall, and now that seems to have caught on or been resurrected from his earlier days, as you mentioned. Chris, so for people that really are big into college football, that know about Sam Darnold, of course, and to a lesser extent, Deontay Burnett with the breakout play at the Rose Bowl, with the recruiting that's taken hold, especially a wide receiver with Ronald Jones at running back. The grades not surprising on the USC offense, but I'm going to put your knowledge to the test to really inform us about the defense and your expectations about these three levels.
Yeah, I think that the defensive line, I'll give them a B because I think that they have a couple of guys I think could be high-end guys, but I question the depth a little bit, and I think I've seen more talented USC defensive lines. The linebackers, I'd say an A, maybe not an A plus because I'm biased and I saw that 2018, but they're pretty close. They have a really good linebacking core. I'll give them an A. And the defensive backfield, I think if you look at the starters, I think it's an A. I think that the depth at the cornerback position makes it a little scary, maybe puts it at a B plus. But they have a talented back seven in this 3-4 defense, I'll say, or back eight, I guess. They could make some noise with this linebacking core and this defensive backfield. So I mean, overall, I think this defense might be an A this year. It's looking pretty good and pretty sharp.
We're happy to be joined by Chris Swanson from Trojans Sports. Please join him right there for the best in USC football coverage. The Western Michigan game on Saturday, then, of course, Stanford in game 2. And with Fleck gone, Western Michigan not expected to perform as it did last year, but still, PJ Fleck recruited 3 top recruiting classes in the MAC. Of course, that's not a Power 5 conference, but still the 3 best recruiting classes, the 3 previous recruiting sessions in college football. So they bring in some talent. It's going to be a formidable foe. One you would think USC is going to beat by 3 or 4 touchdowns, but it could be a game in the third quarter or beyond. Who knows what happens? So let's say it's what we would expect it to be. Not a complete annihilation, but a comfortable win. Let's say it's 38-14. What are you looking to see out of USC that's going to make you feel better about this team going into the big Stanford game?
I think that you have to look to see if the wide receivers showed up and if they were able to put up all the passing yards and if the offensive line dominated the opposing defensive front, gave Sam Darnold time, and they were able to run the ball. I'm really looking at the receivers because I think that that's the biggest question mark. I can't really remember. It's been a few years since USC's really had questions at receiver. I think maybe back to 2007, 2010, maybe something like that. Some of those years back then. And I'm not even sure if it was this questionable. So I want to see those receivers make plays. I think the defense will show up and shut them down. I think all those other things that we expect will probably happen. So I'm looking at the receivers. If you see drops in that game, which is something that doesn't really matter, who you're playing. You could be playing a high school team. You might drop the ball. If these receivers aren't holding on to the ball or they're running the wrong route, I'll be nervous going into some future games. If they, look sharp and they run all over these guys, a well-coached and pretty talented MAC team, I think the USC fans could feel more comfortable about the receiving core.
The college football nation is waiting to see what USC has for us. So with a run that the team went on under Sam Darnold in the conclusion of 2016 and through the Rose Bowl against Penn State, should be very interesting starting on Saturday. Chris Swanson joins us from Trojan Sports. You can obviously see the knowledge and insight on display. So join Chris for his work there at Trojan Sports. Chris, we appreciate the time and enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.